Hello, I'm Linda Seith from The Layered Onion. Thank you for joining us. We will be listening to our amazing creators talk about their art and mental health. 48 million artists all over the world share this lived experience. The Layered Onion was formed to create a supportive community, allowing the creators to focus on their art, bringing their work from the shadows to receive the recognition and opportunities they deserve. Each podcast will feature an artist who talks about their creations and mental wellness. Art is healing. We hope these discussions will inspire you to appreciate the stories behind the creations and, more importantly, inspire your inner creator. Together, we can tackle the stigma surrounding mental health. Hello, Anum. This is Linda, and I'm so excited to have you on our podcast. Maybe you could introduce yourself and what style of art, whether you're visual, maybe you're a visual and a poet or whatever. Maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Thank you, Linda. It's an absolute honor to be interviewed by The Layered Onion. So I am an autodidactic artist, which means that I'm self-taught. And I have been exploring art since I was a child. My initial media was exploring gouache, acrylic, and now more so focusing oil on canvas, as well as now venturing out into digital art and photography. I also write poetry as well. And nature has been a continuous source of inspiration, with interlinks to interfaith and humanity, as well as sort of exploring the relationship between the sciences and the arts via a thematic discovery. So it's sort of quite holistic and very human-centered.
So maybe you could tell us where you're located?
Yes, so I grew up in London, and currently I am based in the Middle East, and also exploring the environment for international art residency, focusing on the theme of place, where I'm looking at contrasts between sort of the softness and the hardness of particular areas, as well as links to healing and the human connection between people and places.
Well, I love that you brought out healing, because the power of art in the healing process, there's starting to be a lot of research about that. And it seems like a long time coming, something that many artists have known, right? And now,
of course.
Yeah. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about your exploration in that area.
Of course, it's fantastic that you mentioned this, Linda. I think going back centuries, there's always been an element of healing in the arts. You know, looking at even the artists struggle themselves, from Van Gogh to Da Vinci. You know, they had their own personal demons and struggles that they overcame. I actually had a piece called Sanctuary, which kind of focused on looking at healing. I think that when we begin to heal ourselves, and especially exploring that through art, we actually heal people and places around us and the world. Because through that healing process, there's this self-development, self-actualization and reflection, which, when as artists we portray that, I think other people and the audience can begin to either relate to it, or they can understand the process. And in empowering ourselves, we are also empowering others, because they can see that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about vulnerability and to be utterly raw and authentic, And that also empowers others to go on their own journey of healing. And I think it creates this ripple effect, and quite a beautiful effect, because healing, it's something that that everybody experiences at some point in their life. And just viewing work of art that explores that, I think that really transcends the conscience and communicates to us on a subconscious level, which helps us as individuals, as communities, as global citizens, to really begin our journey of healing.
You know, I well put, and thank you so much. One of the main purposes of the Shallot, which is our journal for mental health, art, and literature, was really about educating folks on all facets of the mental health journey, sort of acceptance, identifying, using it in your wellness journey. And so you had a piece that was in this latest issue, which was called Bloom. And it's a digital piece, but it struck me in numerous ways. The first way is I happen to love redbud trees, and the magenta color of this piece, especially where it turns to almost like an indigo, is very much some of the colors you can see from a redbud tree. But the second is just the nature of sort of they're not vines, but they almost like tree roots that look throughout the piece. Maybe you could kind of describe this piece for the listener.
Thank you very much, Linda, for exploring it and your perspective and insight on it. So it's a layered piece of digital art, and in it contains these branches, tree branches, which almost look like tree roots. And at the foreground is this bud, this blooming bud. And it's this concept that we have a relationship as humans with nature, and linking, like you said, to healing, that we bloom in our own ways, but there is just this complexity to it, in the sense that when you look at a tree branch, it goes in different directions. And as humans, we face so many different things in our lives. Sometimes it is interconnected, because through our experiences, what we learn and the interconnections that we then make within ourselves, in terms of learning resilience, in terms of being tenacious, and also in terms of being utterly compassionate. And all of these kind of layers then help us to realize who we are, and then bloom, eventually have this bloom of the self. Blooming is not an easy process. If you look at a seed, when it goes to germination, you have to have that seed almost being ripped to have the little leaves coming out, to sort of this struggle. It requires warmth, it's in the darkness, and then it goes towards light. So I think nature shows us that this process of regeneration, this process of renewal and blooming, it is not easy. So I just wanted to sort of show that through this digital art, that it's a complex process. It's not easy, but it's also a beautiful process, and it's interconnected. And these branches can also represent humanity in the background, that we are blooming together. It doesn't have to be a solitary process. It doesn't have to be an isolated, lonely experience of blooming. We can all bloom together, regardless of the challenges that we face. and we can help each other to heal and bloom through the various seasons of life. And then connecting that to nature, I think when you look at nature and you look deeply into nature, you can see this synthesis of all the various aspects coming together, but you can see this struggle. Nature is very tenacious, you know. It's soft, but there's also harsh conditions that even if you're talking about a bud blooming or a tree sapling, you know, the storms that it faces, the thunderstorms, the rainstorms, the period of drought, the period of, you know, being without water, and then being quenched, you know, and hydrated. So just a lot of exploration, and also open to interpretation to the audience, like yourself and your wonderful, wonderful interpretation in how you perceive the artwork to be.
You know, interestingly enough, the more I've been looking at it as you speak, it almost to me brings the thought of brain synapses as well. And when I see the branches or the different layers in the different colors, it almost makes me think of not just a bud, but what's going on, the growth of the bud, but kind of how as we work and grow and renew, that's also how our brain works, right?
Of course, that's a very apt observation. These interlinks actually, when you look at early psychology and early research, they talk about when children use their motor skills, and the more kind of activities they're doing, the more connections are being made in the brain and they're learning. Similarly, through our life experiences, the more that we're experiencing, the more that we're going through, or the more sort of that we are interacting with others and even exploring within ourselves, those connections, those brain synapses, the more they're developing. You know, I don't think we are stagnant at any stage of our lives. I think throughout the history of our individual lives, our brains are evolving through our experiences, through our emotions, through our reactions, through our perceptions and our outlooks. And even by having this conversation, by listening to yourself and listening to your outlook, that's broadened my horizons. That's kind of evolved my understanding of certain things. So I think it's a continual process, and it can be complex and simple at the same time. Like the tree branches, it can be interconnected and complex, but when you look at it from afar, it can be very simple.
So this is obviously the issue was about spring, and this is a bloom which really happens in the springtime. But when you think about the out of doors and think about time of day, the expanse, whether it be an ocean, whether it be, you know, a forest or a desert, what areas of the outdoors are most inspirational for you?
Oh, I love this question, Linda. So my memories of spring are as a schoolgirl going to Enfield County and passing by, you know, patches of grass and daffodils. When the daffodils emerging, that's when I knew, okay, spring is coming, spring is here. And then even learning to grow my own daffodils and bulbous plants, hyacinths and gladiolus, and even through gardening when the seedlings sort of sprouted, then kind of looking at, I remember we had a fieldwork trip to Constable Country. John Constable, his grandfather's mill, Flatwood Mill, and then kind of seeing snowdrops in the forest. That really sort of, to this day, I think I was a 17-year-old, that still stays in my mind. A carpet of bluebells, you know, and just passing by areas where even something simple as the smell of jasmine. I remember growing up my own garden and mowing the lawn, and the smell of freshly cut grass. It's just all of these memories are so simple. Even grass stains, you know, when you're sitting down or playing as a child and rolling on hills and getting grass stains, but this burst of green color, this burst of flowery colors, this burst of smell. And I think even the climate, sort of when it's quite cold in the winter, and then just the sunshine, the sun ray kind of warming you, it's just I love spring. It just has all these wonderful memories. I also love autumn as well. You know, when the leaves are whirling in the wind, and just doing these roly-polies down the hill in a carpet of leaves, or just walking through them. Spring rain, and just coming to life. And I think there is great hope in spring. I think as humans, you know, we can be quite cruel to each other. We can be quite complicated. But when you look at nature, nature is kind and compassionate and full of hope. So observing spring, and in different parts of the world, you know, you'll have different flora and fauna coming to life, and just seeing that and gazing into life unfolding, I think it's a miracle. Just wonderful to see, wonderful to see.
Something that you said that just resonates with me, and I didn't make that tie to spring until you brought it up, is kindness is probably to me something I hold in as one of the most important values I have, is kindness. And I think if we all displayed kindness, things would operate so differently in the world if that was people's main focus, was on kindness. But when you tied it to spring, I had kind of this aha moment of thinking about, oh, you know, spring renewal, the opportunity to start over. So maybe you haven't always been kind to yourself, or kind to a situation, or kind to someone. It gives you an opportunity to renew and start again. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think it's so important. Kindness makes a difference. But at the same time, I'm learning to be assertive as well. So I think you have to also learn to be kind to yourself, in the sense of not sacrificing your own respect and dignity. So you have to match that kindness. And, you know, the more kindness you give away, I think it enriches you as a person. I think the most strongest, courageous, bravest people are the kindest and the compassionate, who would look at your vulnerability and see it as a healing for themselves and a healing for you, so you heal together, rather than an opportunity to put you down and step on your dignity. So I think
agree. Kindness is really strength.
Yes.
It should be
to
interpreted
yourself and
that
to
way.
others. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, it was kind of, I learned or really saw kindness exhibited from, I had a grandmother who was just so kind. And she passed when I was fairly young. But I remember, and a very humble humble living, not well-to-do. And I remember going to the funeral and people were lined up on the street and everybody coming through to tell my father and their siblings about stories of kindness, that my grandmother had treated them with kindness, but there was lots of strength. And I think you're right. Sometimes people might interpret kindness as a way or think that they could stifle, and that isn't it at all.
Absolutely. Lovely to hear about your memory of your grandmother, and sorry about her passing away. And I think that's the testament, that's the legacy, kindness leaves a legacy like no other. And kind people and compassionate people, they are strong, because you need strength of character to be kind. And not everybody can do it, but I would always advocate, go on that journey to heal yourself, overcome your fears, and be courageous enough to be kind. It's the only way that we can heal ourselves and the world around us. As Mother Teresa said, it's what we feel like what we're doing is only a drop in the ocean. But if that drop wasn't there, the ocean would be missing something. And she also said something very profound, that we forget that we belong to each other. So as humans, I think we share a common ancestry, we share so many interlinks, and we forget that we have rights towards each other, even if it's in something simple as in the name of humanity. So I think kindness is that bond between us that sometimes we have to learn to renew within us and externally towards others.
Yes, agreed. So when you brought up community, so the Layered Onion is a community of artists that have mental or emotional health challenges. What have you found to be the most valuable part of being in this community?
I think the supportive way that the Layered Onion and even the Shallot is sort of arranged, and even the concept itself, I just think of the Layered Onions as in layers. It's like when you think of something in layers, you begin to understand it better. When somebody is smiling, look at their eyes. There might be this sorrow in their eyes, and you begin to see the layers. Or if someone is being angry, maybe they're being defensive, or they're trying to protect themselves. So when you look at the different layers of a person, you begin to understand, and again, that links to the compassion aspect. But with the Layered Onion community, you have this great sense of acceptance and freedom in exploring art, literature, poetry, and empowerment, because Linda, mental health is something that affects everyone. Even if it's something as having a bad day, and everybody's had a bad day, to having a little bit of anxiety, which everybody has gone through, it is something that affects everyone. So by kind of looking at it on different layers and the different intensity through which people experience it, I think the Layered Onion is doing something that is very much needed. It's very much needed, because we need to have these discussions and conversations. If you read the news, there's much talk about how much progress there is on mental health and mental well-being. But if you actually look at the ground reality, the sad reality is actually much more needs to be done. And I think what you guys are doing, it's essential. It's very much needed. And I think a lot of artists would appreciate it. I actually met Katie Sanford through the Layered Onion, through the
yeah.
community. And
Awesome.
I really, really admire and respect her very much. And I think we had a couple of interviews about her experiences, and you know, she is a brilliant, she's a champion. And what she is doing, I think brings hope to many, brings awareness to many. And it's through communities like yourself that I was able to meet her. We were able to connect. And also, I think she submitted some very nice and thoughtful pieces to the Layered Onion. So it's although it's grassroots, but it's also international. So you have this nice touch of being intimately global, which is wonderful.
I have learned so much from all of you. There's been so much wisdom that everybody has shared, and every day it gives me tremendous hope. And so thank you. And I thank all of the artists. It's really been an incredible experience. But if you were going to impart some wisdom with other artists who are maybe facing similar challenges, but just don't really know how to approach it, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to realize that everybody, or almost everybody, has gone through challenges. They might not be similar, and that things do actually get better. And if you're going through a challenge, and this is advice that I was given many times, it's because you have a greater destiny ahead of you. And these challenges are teaching you skills that you will use to uplift yourself and to uplift others. And maybe in a way, turn these challenges into opportunities, because we may never know. These challenges may be gifts in themselves, and they might unravel. You see, they might unravel into something that is so wonderful. So when we go through something difficult and it seems so impossible, and it seems like there's just so much darkness and it's so bleak, well, actually, that's temporary. When you see the light coming through, and when you work through the challenge, it will in fact unravel. And once it starts unraveling, you will see that good things start happening, and things just get better and better and better, and it leads on to better things, better pathways, and the future is bright. Always remember that. The future is bright, and if you're struggling, that's because you have an amazing destiny ahead of you. And that would be my advice to the artists. If they even look at the varying artists, you know, we look at the classical masters, we look at Van Gogh or Da Vinci, who was somebody that was multi-talented. They went through mental health issues and crisis. We look at Paulo Coelho. He spent time institutionalized in a mental ward. We look at Princess Diana, somebody so beautiful and elegant, and she had struggles with bulimia, and she was at times tormented, and she had her own struggles, but her grace carries on to this day. She leaves this legacy of beauty and grace. If you look at, you know, even interfaith links, you know, the concept of David and Goliath or Daniel and the lions, we begin to see that the challenges, in fact, are illusions. I feel personally to help you gain the skills that you need in order to live the destiny and in order to live your dreams.
What a lovely wisdom you were sharing. And I don't think we can top that. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I hope you submit some poetry. You're quite the lyricist, and just listening to you just brings a sense of calm for me. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, an absolute pleasure. And I would definitely be contributing further to the Shallot, and, you know, wonderful being part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. It is an honor to talk with these amazing creators. You can see and read the artist's work in the Shallot, our journal of mental health, art, and literature, or on our website, thelayeredonion.com. Thank you.